One time my brother wrote the answers on the side of his shoe, so all he had to do was tilt his foot slightly. Another time, taking inspiration from Pringle, he wrote the answers on the interior side of his glasses. All he had to do was take them off and act like he was thinking. And for the final exam, he wore contacts and carried glasses but didn't wear them. He wrote on the glass with a white marker, and because the desk was black, he could see all 40 answers to the quiz. He ended up getting 100% for every test.
Salty Squid was about 6 years old. He had a series of dreams where the moon was his worst enemy. He would walk around and push Salty Squid around, which was very weird. But in one dream, he was watching the news when the moon was very visible behind the reporter. The camera zoomed in on the moon and it called Salty Squid's name. The moon then broke through the TV and started beating Salty Squid up. Then Salty Squid's cousin arrived and told the moon to stop. He refused, so they threw a staircase at him, and then Salty Squid woke up.
Tollup was at his friend's house playing some video games, and after about 5 minutes, Tollup's friend turned off his Xbox and told Tollup to follow him up to his room. They both went upstairs into his room, and Tollup's friend turned on the light. The first thing Tollup saw was a bunch of people dry humping each other in lobster costumes. Then Tollup's friend put a hat on him and said, "Red Lobsters," spelled backwards. And they said, "Happy birthday, you lobster murderer." It wasn't even his birthday. Tollup was completely confused, and now he can't eat seafood without thinking about that moment.
When Dolan was 11, his class went on a school field trip which had 2 parts. A history museum about his town, and then they would go to a camp and stay a few nights. At the museum, a man walked up to his teacher who became very nervous, at least from what Dolan could tell. The man walked off after a minute or 2 of arguing with the teacher, and they continued as usual. They went to their camp and stayed the first night, but something scraped on their cabin doors. Come next morning, there was a shattered window in the mess hall and a big red pentagram on the side of the building. It wasn't blood, just paint. The counselors told everyone that whoever did it would be sent home. And then that same man ran out of the woods with a naked baby and 3 other people with plastic Nerf rifles screaming a weird language. They then proceeded to run off, and Dolan and his class got the fuck out of there.
Back in 6th grade, Ladybot School had a really tall jungle gym. During recess, Ladybot told her friends to lead her in front of the jungle gym. Ladybot climbed up to the top and shouted to her,
"I'll do a backflip for you, my love."
Ladybot did the backflip and landed on her face, breaking her arm and nose. They ended up dating though, so worth it? Civil Spider was once at a restaurant when he overheard a woman talking with the waiter about the cheeseburger she ordered. It was not a great conversation to listen to. The woman's question was as follows: "Does this cheeseburger have cheese in it?" Somehow the woman couldn't take yes for an answer, so the conversation went on and on. Civil Spider couldn't believe what he was hearing. Eventually, the waiter just took the bun off the burger and showed her the cheese. The woman responded, "I know, but where is the cheese?" Civil Spider decided he was done with that conversation at that moment, so he paid the check and left.
When Gurgak was a teenager, he liked to secretly sleep naked. One morning, his female friend came over to see if he wanted to walk with her to school. Gurgak's mom told her that Gurgak was still sleeping, but she could go upstairs and wake him up. She opened the door and shouted, "Gurgak!" That's when she saw Gurgak laying spread out in his bed with no clothes on and a huge boner. Gurgak opened his eyes and screamed. They didn't talk much about the incident for a long time, but they finally reached the point where they could laugh about it.
One time, Sweet Commander was invited to his friend's house, but the second he walked in, he smelt something weird. He looked over in the corner of the room and saw that there was a big piece of shit on the floor. Sweet Commander's friend didn't have any pets or younger siblings, and he was the only person home. Sweet Commander couldn't ignore the smell, so he pointed out the rug and said,
"Hey, do you know who took a shit on the floor?"
He expected his friend to be really embarrassed, but he just casually waved it off and said, "Nah man, that's just some Play-Doh." 10 minutes later, Sweet Commander faked a call from his mum and got the hell out of there.
Back when Gurgak was in kindergarten, he was drinking Sprite when one of his classmates asked him what it was. Gurgak lied by saying that it was poison, but it made him strong. He proceeded to take the can and crush it against his forehead before chasing his classmate, hissing like a snake. Gergak went on to say that his drink also gave him snake-like abilities. Years later, when he was in the 5th grade, Gergak and some of his friends were eating raw meat for some reason. One of their classmates caught them and asked why they were eating raw meat. Gergak told him it was because they were wolves, and one of his friends howled. The teacher had overheard everything and laughed, despite their classmate running away in fear. So this guy gets 3, huh? That's hardly fair. Another time when he was at home, Gergak had taken his cousin's phone. He told his cousin that a ghost took it, scaring him to the point where he begged his mom to have the house blessed. When Gergak tells that story at Christmas or whenever his family gets together, everyone always has a good laugh.
When Pringle was younger, he and his brother bought a bunch of different sodas for a soda tasting YouTube challenge. One of them caught Pringle's eye. It had a weird name and the look and consistency of blood. As they started recording the challenge, Pringle sculled a big glass of blood soda. It tasted great, but he immediately felt funny. Pringle can't really remember the rest of the night, but he remembers waking up in a hospital with a bandaged hand. When he woke up, he asked his brother,
What happened?
and his brother said, alcohol happened. It turns out the blood soda was actually super strong vodka that caused Pringle to instantly lose his shit. He started singing and dancing into the camera and then disappeared into the kitchen to cook everyone a meal. After heating some oil in a pan, drunk Pringle slammed his hand onto the pan. His brother tried to stop him, but Pringle pushed him away, shouting,
Nobody stops the chef!
Today, Pringle still has burn marks on his hand. He's now terrified of any unfamiliar sodas.
Civil Spider was watching a costume contest at a convention when the announcer called for contestant number 7. Suddenly, a bunch of Deadpools ran up on stage and started dancing. One of them was holding up a boombox that was playing YMCA, so they were all doing the YMCA poses. The announcer sounded pissed and yelled at them to get off the stage. Then the contest continued like nothing ever happened.
One night, while Spincess was watching My Little Pony, a teenager suddenly burst through the front door wearing a Jimmy Neutron costume. He then pulled down his pants and started jerking off. When Spincess asked him to leave, all he did was yell, "Brain Blast!" She called the police, but the guy was long gone by the time they got to her house. Spincess has never forgotten that night.
Nixium was in Spain when he was about 2 years old. He was at the beach with his mom and grandma, and right as he came out of the water, the lady next to them went in. When Nixium came out of the water, he really had to pee, and the lady next to them left her picnic basket open. He thought it was a toilet and peed in it. It covered all her sandwiches, and when she came back, she wondered why her sandwiches were soggy and smelled bad. Nixium's family didn't see him do it.
One time, Sweet Commando went to his nephew's 6th birthday party. His nephew had invited every kid from his class, including one sour little shithead with a bad attitude. When Sweet Commando asked them who wanted a drink, the kids all threw their hands up and shouted, "Me, me!" When he brought out the drinks, the kid with the attitude got really mad when he saw that the cola drinks were a generic brand and not actual Coke. He sat on the floor, crossed his arms and legs, and refused to drink it. He even tried to talk the other kids out of drinking theirs because apparently he thought generic brand drinks were the worst thing in the universe. Sweet Commando watched the kids sulk about it for 40 minutes while the rest of the kids were having fun. It was both sad and hilarious. Okay, but to be fair, off-brand soda tastes like toilet water, so I'd probably do the same thing.
One of the coolest things a sibling did for me was when we went to the Atlantis Paradise Resort in the Bahamas. This was one of the most famous and popular resorts to date, and it was really nice. I was only 11 years old at the time, and I barely knew really what was going on, but I did like the scenery and everything around it. It was during at that time that we noticed that there was a pool park in the Atlantis, so we went to the Atlantis pool park. The pool park was amazing. It had swings, it had slides, it had everything a child my age could dream of in a pool park. So by the time I noticed all of the pools, there was one up top. It was really high up and you had to take ladders to get there. I got up to the pool and it was pretty shallow, so it was perfect for my height. Across from that I saw a pool, but it was on a lower level, but you had to take a slide to get there. So I took the slide, and as I was landing into the lower pool, I didn't notice it was actually a deep end pool. So I landed inside and I started drowning. I started flailing my arms and just asking, please help, help, help. But I drowned too quick. I was already deep underwater and I started believing that it was it. I was gonna die, and that was pretty much it. At that very point in time, my sister rescued and saved my life. She pulled me out of the water and put me to sit down afterwards. I was amazed I actually lived after that day, because I swear it was time for me to go. And after that, I gotta say, that was probably one of the coolest things my sibling ever did for me, and I'll never forget it.
At school one day, Ursa was walking down the stairs to get lunch when she heard two students having a heated argument. It was a boy and a girl, and they were talking about food. They were in front of the exit door, so she had to stick around and listen to their food argument. Or to be more specific, their food argument was about the cruelty present in the food industry. According to the girl, the cruelest was the production of honey. The girl kept screaming, "It's cruel because it takes so many bees to make it!" Ursa was confused until the girl continued by saying, "Grinding up all those bees just so we can have one jar of honey! It's outlandishly cruel!" At that point, the boy tried to calm her down and explain how honey was actually made, but she didn't listen. Sick of them blocking the exit, Ursa spoke up and told her that bees made the honey and that honey was not made from bees. The girl just stared at her while the boy pulled her away. During lunch, Ursa and her friends laughed about it.
When Shima was in middle school, she used to get picked on by an overweight bully. This bully was always taking her bad moods out on everyone around her, but somehow she was super popular. One day, Shima was shocked to see her bully come into class sucking on a pacifier. It wasn't a lollipop made to look like a pacifier either. It was an actual damn binky designed for babies. Shima got picked on all the time for being just a little bit different, but somehow, neither the teacher nor the bully's cool friends said anything about a 16-year-old sucking on a dummy in class. See, this is the power of charisma. I'm sure Steve Jobs could walk out on stage sucking on a fucking pacifier, take it out and be like, it's an eye pacifier, and everyone in the whole fucking world would buy it. All it takes is a little bit of confidence, guys. Also, it helps if you're a giant cunt to everyone, apparently.
When she was 15, Froggy worked at a convenience store. After she turned down a perverted old man for the 60th time, he walked up to the manager and said, "You need to fire all your other employees and make the uniform into skimpy bras and underwear." Her boss just looked at him as the guy gave Froggy a wink and said, "I'm looking out for you, honey." Her boss rung him up and said, "Sorry, I like my employees and would never sexually harass them. More so that underage girl."
When Civil Spider's little brother was 3, his dad invited over one of his friends. His dad's friends decided to bring over his girlfriend, who had gigantic boobs. They were all in the living room just hanging out when Civil Spider's little brother decided to walk over to the girlfriend, who was sitting on the couch, and poke her boobs as he stated, "You have big boobs!" Everyone was silent as the girlfriend agreed, "Yes, I do have big boobs." Everyone was wetting themselves as they laughed at what happened. Civil Spider's dad said through his tears of laughter, "Dang, every time I do that, I get slapped." His little brother just sat there, looking confused. That was a great night.
When Dolan's brother was a kid, he had a friend who was great at making latex masks. One day they were watching television and Dolan's brother said,
"Hey, wanna make a mask so I look like an adult? I wanna see if I can get some beer at a bar."
His friend laughed, but accepted. When he was done making it, they rode bikes to the nearest bar. Dolan's brother sat on his friend's shoulders and used his dad's jacket and the mask. He had been practicing his adult voice. Dolan's brother put the mask on and they went in. They asked for some bottles and the bartender fell for it. When they got home, they split the bottle and drank till they thought they were going to bar.
Alyssa was recently on a date with a guy and decided to play a bit of Pokemon Go while they walked home. When they got to her front door, she invited him in for some cold water as it was a hot summer night and they had just walked a mile. She nervously blurted, "Sir, do you want to come inside, drink some water, maybe let me get a Pikachu? Get it? Pikachu?" He just kind of stared at her and said, "No, I'm good, thanks." She was hoping a bad pun would loosen the mood, but she was wrong.
Emoji was taking a walk down the street when a charity worker came up to him collecting money for guide dogs. With great sadness, the worker said, Did you know that there are currently more than 30,000 blind adults on a guide dog waiting list? Without thinking, Emoji smiled and blurted out, "I guess it's a good thing they can't see the list then." The worker looked at Emoji like he had just kicked a puppy. Sidious worked at a diner. One time, he had just started his shift when his boss came in with a strange request. He told Sidious to take all the money out of the register and hand it to an attractive customer who was sitting in a booth by herself. When Sidious refused to do this, his boss threw a fit. He grabbed Sidious by the arm, pointed at the girl, and screamed, "Give her the money!" The girl was very scared and confused by this, so she got up and left. It turned out Sidious's boss was just really drunk. He didn't even know the girl, but he figured he could make her fall in love with him if he gave her all the diner's money. That was enough to make Sidious look for a new job. A few years ago, one of Ursa's friends wanted a tablet for Christmas. She was upset because her parents said that it was too expensive. So, one day, Ursa's friend asked her what she would do if she was in her situation. Jokingly, Ursa told her that if she catches her parents having sex, then they might get her a tablet to help her with her mental scarring. Ursa's friend took the advice seriously and actually managed to walk in on her parents having sex. Or so she thought. It turned out that her dad was cheating on her mom. The next day, Ursa's friend walked into school with not only a new tablet, but a new backpack, the latest iPhone, and 3 boxes of Oreos. To this day, her friend's mom still doesn't know what happened. I don't know, man, that's a little fucked up.
Well, actually, a really cruel lie that I tried at school once. Tried to explain why I'd been away for about a week. I was kind of faking a sickness. And I had this principal really grill me saying, like, why were you away for so long? Like, you can't do that. Because I didn't have a doctor's certificate. So I tried to come up with some illness that would explain why I'm away for so long. Because, I was feeling really pressured. And I was thinking about saying, well, I was vomiting. I was really bad. But then, out of nowhere, I just said, yeah, it turns out I have cancer. And the principal just kind of stared at me and just, like, shut up. He just stared at me like, oh, okay. He didn't ask me anything else. He just kind of let me walk out of the room. He was obviously feeling really guilty, just like I was. But, for different reasons. But hey, I got a week off school, even if I am going to go to hell someday. Worth it.
I never really prank called people growing up because I was really bad at holding in laughter. But I do remember a time that I accidentally called someone that I didn't mean to call. Once, I was at my grandmother's house and I meant to call my mom. But apparently I dialed the wrong number. A woman picked up who sounds similar to my mom. So I said, "Mommy, can you please come pick me up at my grandma's house?" The woman on the phone was confused, but thought I was her daughter somehow, and was like, "Honey, Grandma's here, where are you?" And I kept telling her, "Grandma's not there, Grandma's here, I'm at Grandma's house." She got really confused and she was like, "Honey, no, Grandmother is right here," and she handed the phone to an older lady. I was like, "Hello?" And she was like, "Hello?" And I was so confused and embarrassed that I just hung up and stared at the phone in confusion because I was so sure I had dialed my mom's number, and I was so confused as to why she was acting so weird and who the lady on the phone was who was claiming to be my grandmother. But I bet they were just as confused as I was.
One time, Civil Spider was riding the bus when he heard 2 boys playing music on their phones. At first, they were talking tough and acting like gangsters, but when a slow song came on, they panicked. One of them fumbled with his phone to skip it like it was a matter of life or death. When he changed the song, Civil Spider overheard him say that listening to ballads can turn you gay. Someone at school had told them this, and they were stressing it could happen to them.
One time, Emoji was in quite a hurry because he was running late to meet some friends. He was walking down a busy street when suddenly he tripped and fell straight onto the pavement. When he stood up and brushed himself off, he noticed everyone was looking at him. A stranger ran over and asked, "Are you okay?" But in a flustered panic, he fumbled his words, and instead of saying, "I'm good" or "I'm okay," he shouted, "I'm gay," and ran off. His face went red as he hurried down the footpath. His friends had a good chuckle when they found out what had happened.
When Gergak was in 8th grade, he was getting changed for PE. One guy held a BB gun to Gergak's head and told him to piss on his gym shorts. After he did that, the guy told Gergak to put them on and go out to class. He then went on to say that if he told any of the teachers, he would kick Gergak in the nuts until he bled. From that day forward, Gergak was known as the guy who pissed himself.
Melissa once went to a concert with a friend, but it was so dark she ended up losing her friend halfway through. She turned and said, "Ah, there you are." She started telling her friend all the things she missed while she was away for a good 15 minutes. Suddenly, someone tapped her on the shoulder and she turned around. It was her friend. She asked Melissa, "How do you know that person?" Melissa looked again. She had somehow mistaken her friend for someone else literally the entire time. Melissa got embarrassed and awkwardly shuffled away from her friend's doppelganger.
When Ramona broke up with her ex, they decided they would try and stay friends. So one day, Ramona went to her ex's house to hang out. Things were going well, until her ex did something really messed up. He went into his drawer and pulled out a sex doll that looked just like her. He undressed the doll and started touching it inappropriately. Ramona slapped him and yelled, "You perv!" She then ripped the doll from his hands, stormed out, and never talked to him again.
When she was 6, Princess Proton's mom always told her to make sure that she turned on the fan in the bathroom whenever she showered. That way, mold wouldn't grow on the walls. So one day, Princess Proton forgot to turn on the fan while showering like she always did. Her mom went into the bathroom, pulled her out of the shower, and dragged her down the stairs. She sat her down at the kitchen table and said, "Since you never turn on the fan in the bathroom." That was when her mom brought 3 fans to the table and turned them on full blast. Because she was naked and soaking wet, the air felt very cold to Princess Proton. She still thinks that that punishment was much better than being spanked.
I was out cycling around my town a year or 2 ago, and I had just stopped beside a bus stop to drink some water. Now, there were these 2 people at the bus stop talking to each other. A guy and his girlfriend, or maybe his wife, I don't know. Now, they must not have realized I had stopped just behind them because the guy was saying some really lewd stuff to her. He said to her, "Later tonight, I'm gonna gag you, and I'm gonna show you a good time, babe." To which his lady responded with, "Mike, we don't even own a gag." Now, me being me, I suddenly butted into the conversation at this point. I just said, "Oh, if you want cheap gags, you can buy yourself one at Spencer's over at the mall." And that made them turn and look at me, and there was this awkward silence. And I sipped my water. There was another awkward silence, and then I just rode away.
So one day, Sid and his girlfriend went to Dairy Queen to get a Blizzard. His girlfriend hated the brownie-flavored Blizzard, but he didn't know that at the time. She got an Oreo Blizzard and he got the brownie Blizzard. When she saw what Sid ordered, she fucking flipped and grabbed his Blizzard and threw it out the car window. She then said, "I hate you, I'm never talking to you again!" And after that, he never saw her again.
When Ghost Toast was little, his uncle used to come over and watch. Unfortunately, his uncle was a huge asshole whose favorite hobby was yelling and being cruel to Ghost Toast. Just for fun, he'd jump out from behind corners and frighten Ghost Toast with his gargoyle mask. Other times, he'd pretended to threaten Ghost Toast with a baseball bat and even locked him in the toilet for a whole hour just to mess with him. Ghost Toast tried telling his parents, but they thought he was overreacting. That is, until they caught him doing the creepy gargoyle mask routine. Ghost Toast still sees his uncle from time to time, but he hasn't forgiven him for effectively traumatizing him.
When Dolan was in 7th grade, it was winter and it was really cold. He was waiting in the aisle of his bus for all the other students to take their seats. The floor was wet from all the melted ice dripping on people's feet. Everyone was pushing and shoving trying to find a seat when suddenly Dolan slipped on some melted snow and tripped over. One of his friends accidentally trampled all over him and somehow lodged his entire foot up Dolan's rectum. The rest of the bus found this hilarious and gave Dolan the nickname Footbutt for the rest of the year.
When Helbin was 13, his neighbors asked him to babysit their son and daughter. He usually spent his time playing with their son, but on this particular night, the daughter was crying for attention. Helbin felt bad, so he decided to play dolls with her. This made her brother really jealous. He started having a tantrum, but Helbin told him to stop being a baby and to let his sister have some attention. The boy stormed off. A few minutes later, Helbin heard footsteps in the hallway. He turned around and saw the little boy standing there looking very, very mad. In his hands, he was holding a small Boy Scout's axe. Hellbent kicked the door closed and the boy started hacking away at it. Hellbent threw his weight against the door and cried out for the boy to stop, saying,
I'm sorry, I'll play with you.
Luckily, the boy's parents came home at that exact moment. The boy ran into his room and Hellbent raced downstairs to tell them what their little serial killer son had done. Needless to say, that was the last time he babysat for that family. Here's Johnny.
Slapped Ham and his father were driving home from a family gathering when suddenly the sky got dark on the expressway. At a certain point, Slapped Ham's father casually asked, "Hey, you ever seen a tornado?" He replied no, and his dad told him to look behind them. In the middle of the road, behind the car, was a humongous tornado messing with trees and traffic. The wind lifted their car off the ground for about 3 seconds before dropping them back to the earth before they sped off down the road for their very lives.